Comprehensive summary of The Mountain is You. Transforming Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery by Brianna Wiest. What if the biggest obstacle in your life isn't your circumstances, but a part of yourself you haven't yet understood? In The Mountain is You, Brianna Wiest reveals that self-sabotage is not a character flaw, but a protective, though misguided, coping mechanism. This is your guide to decoding those behaviors, healing the core needs they mask, and transforming from being your own greatest obstacle into your most powerful source of strength and self-mastery. Introduction: The Nature of the Mountain. Brianna Wiest begins by reframing our greatest personal challenges not as external obstacles, but as internal constructs. The mountain is a powerful metaphor for the accumulated self-sabotaging behaviors, conflicting needs, and unresolved emotional wounds that stand between us and the life we desire. Much like natural phenomena, forest fires that renew ecosystems, stars that must collapse to become supernovas, our periods of breakdown are often the necessary precursors to breakthrough. This mountain arises from the clash between our conscious desires and our unconscious needs. The conscious mind knows what we want: success, health, loving relationships, while the unconscious mind, driven by past traumas, limiting beliefs, and unmet needs, actively works to hold us back as a form of protection. Wiest argues that imperfection is not a sign of failure, but the very condition that makes growth possible. The mountain, therefore, is not a punishment but a calling. It is our life's purpose made manifest, demanding that we grow to overcome it. The ultimate goal is not to conquer the external circumstance, but to master the self. In the end, Wiest writes, it is not the mountain that you must master, but yourself. Chapter 1: The Mountain is You. This chapter establishes the central thesis. The primary impediment to our progress is ourselves, specifically through the mechanism of self-sabotage. Wiest dismantles the common perception of self-sabotage as masochistic or a simple lack of willpower. Instead, she redefines it as an intelligent, albeit maladaptive, coping mechanism designed by our subconscious to meet an unfulfilled need or protect us from perceived danger. The origins of self-sabotage are explored in depth. It's a coping mechanism, like Carl Jung's childhood fainting spells, which unconsciously allowed him to avoid school. Self-sabotage is a way to give ourselves what we need, e.g., safety, avoidance of vulnerability, without having to address the root issue. It stems from irrational fear. Often, our sabotaging behaviors are projections of deeper, unexamined fears. Fear of loss of control, fear of being unworthy, fear of success. We fixate on unlikely scenarios because they are safe to worry about, distracting us from the more legitimate, underlying fears. It comes from unconscious, negative associations. Our self-concept, built over a lifetime, contains negative associations between achieving our goals and negative outcomes. For example, if we subconsciously believe rich people are corrupt, we will sabotage financial success to maintain a positive self-image. It comes from what's unfamiliar. Humans are wired for comfort and familiarity, even if that familiarity is suffering. Gay Hendricks' concept of the upper limit is introduced, a self-imposed tolerance for happiness that we subconsciously enforce to remain within our known comfort zone. It comes from belief systems. Our core beliefs about ourselves and the world become self-fulfilling prophecies. If we believe we are anxious people or incapable of earning more than a certain salary, our actions will align to make this true. The chapter concludes with a call to radical self-honesty. To begin the journey, we must get out of denial. Wiest provides a practical exercise, writing down every specific problem and dissatisfaction in our lives with utter clarity. This act of facing the truth, no matter how painful, is the first step toward change. She reframes rock bottom, not as a failure, but as the powerful turning point where the pain of staying the same finally exceeds the fear of change, leading to a resolute declaration. I never want to feel this way again. Chapter 2: There's no such thing as self-sabotage. This chapter deepens the reframing of self-sabotage, arguing that the term is a misnomer. These behaviors are not an attempt to hurt ourselves, but to protect ourselves. They are the subconscious mind's ingenious, if flawed, solution to a problem we haven't consciously acknowledged. Wiest explains that when we have two conflicting desires, one conscious and one unconscious, the unconscious will always win because it is tied to our fundamental sense of safety. Therefore, what appears as a problem, e.g., procrastination, choosing the wrong partners, is actually a symptom of a deeper attachment to having that problem. For instance, someone might sabotage success because they subconsciously believe it will make them less liked, and their core need for connection outweighs their conscious desire for achievement. The bulk of this chapter is a detailed catalog of common self-sabotaging behaviors and their resolutions. Resistance: the inability to move forward on positive projects. Resolution: refocus on your vision and identify the unconscious beliefs causing the blockage. Hitting your upper limit: unconsciously sabotaging good things to return to a familiar emotional baseline. Resolution: acclimate slowly to new levels of happiness to expand your comfort zone. Uprooting: constantly seeking fresh starts, new jobs, relationships, cities, to avoid dealing with underlying issues. Resolution: cultivate clarity and commitment and confront discomfort instead of fleeing. Perfectionism: the fear of failure or vulnerability disguised as a desire for excellence. Resolution: focus on progress, not perfection. Don't worry about writing a bestseller, just write. Limited emotional processing skills: inability to handle difficult emotions, leading to avoidance of risks. Resolution: learn to identify, validate, and release emotions through steps like journaling, crying, and talking. Justification: using excuses as a substitute for action and accomplishment. Resolution: measure your life by outcomes, not intentions. Stop accepting your own excuses. Disorganization: creating chaos to avoid the responsibility that comes with order. Resolution: start small, declutter, and create systems that support, rather than hinder you. Attachment to what you don't really want: pursuing goals adopted from others or outdated versions of yourself. Resolution: have the courage to reevaluate and let go of paths that are not authentically yours. Judging others: criticizing what we envy, which creates a subconscious rule that we cannot have it ourselves. Resolution: practice compassion and non-judgment, which opens us up to receiving what we desire. Pride: letting the fear of how we are perceived dictate our decisions. Resolution: embrace imperfection and a growth mindset. Guilt of succeeding: feeling unworthy of abundance in a world of suffering. Resolution: reframe success and money as tools for positive impact and creating more time and freedom. Fear of failing: avoiding attempts to avoid the sting of failure. Resolution: differentiate between failing from negligence, a step back, and failing from daring to try, a step forward. Downplaying: minimizing successes to avoid the fear of peaking or making others feel threatened. Resolution: own your accomplishments graciously and understand that life is a progressive journey, not a single peak. Unhealthy habits and being busy: using tangible habits or a packed schedule as distractions from underlying emotional needs. Resolution: define health on your own terms and streamline your schedule to focus on priorities, not distractions. The chapter culminates in the concept of core commitments. These are the subconscious primary objectives that guide our lives, e.g., a commitment to feeling free, being in control, or being loved. These commitments are often cover-ups for unmet core needs, e.g., the need for autonomy, trust, or self-love. The more we neglect our core needs, the louder and more destructive our commitment symptoms, self-sabotage, become. True healing involves identifying and fulfilling these core needs. Finally, Wiest introduces the crucial skill of disconnecting action from feeling. We are held back not because we are incapable, but because we don't feel like taking action. She argues that motivation follows action, not the other way around. By using logic and vision to guide our behavior, even when it feels uncomfortable, we can retrain our brains to find comfort in the actions that move our lives forward. Chapter 3: Your triggers are the guides to your freedom. Here, Wiest teaches us to use our emotional triggers and self-sabotaging patterns as a roadmap to our deepest needs and unresolved wounds. A trigger is not the problem itself. It is a sign that we lack the emotional processing skills to handle a specific feeling and that an old wound has been touched. The chapter provides an interpretive guide for common negative emotions, reframing them as messengers. Anger signals a violated boundary or injustice. It is meant to mobilize us to take action and create change. Sadness, a healthy response to loss. It must be allowed to move through us in waves, and crying is a sign of strength, not weakness. Guilt often points to a behavior that was not in alignment with our values or is a carryover from childhood feelings of being a burden. Embarrassment and shame. Embarrassment is a signal that we did not behave in a way we are proud of. Its shadow, shame, is a toxic global condemnation of the self. Jealousy, a cover-up for sadness and self-dissatisfaction. It shows us what we truly want, but are suppressing in our own lives. Resentment arises from unmet expectations of others. It calls us to release our fantasies about who people should be and see them for who they are. Regret, not a punishment but a motivator. It shows us what we absolutely must prioritize and create going forward. Chronic fear, often a metaphor for a deeper, more abstract fear, e.g., loss of control. The way through it is acceptance. If that happens, it happens, which instantly robs the fear of its power. Wiest then provides a powerful list of common self-sabotaging scenarios and decodes what the subconscious might be communicating. For example, going back to a person who broke you, it might be time to evaluate childhood relationship patterns. Feeling unhappy despite having everything you wanted. You are expecting external accomplishments to provide internal peace. Overworking. You are trying to prove your value and running from the discomfort of being alone with your feelings. Caring too much about what others think. You are not as happy as you think you are. The happier you are, the less you need others' approval. The chapter concludes with a critical lesson on distinguishing between instinct and fear. Our true gut instinct is quiet, calm, and present moment focused. It is a subtle nudge toward or away from something based on current interaction. Fear, by contrast, is loud, panicked, and future-oriented, often involving projection and catastrophic thinking. Learning to discern the little voice of intuition from the screaming of fear is essential for making decisions aligned with our true path. Chapter 4. Building Emotional Intelligence. This chapter posits that self-sabotage is fundamentally a product of low emotional intelligence, EI. To achieve self-mastery, we must understand and learn to work with our brains and body's inherent wiring. Key psychological concepts are explored. Your brain is designed to resist what you really want. Neurologically, the dopamine-driven pleasure is in the wanting, not the having. When we achieve a goal, we simply want more. This, combined with our subconscious fear of the changes success will bring, can make us vilify the very things we desire. Your body is governed by a homeostatic impulse. The subconscious mind works to maintain our physical and mental status quo, our comfort zone. It uses confirmation bias to affirm our pre-existing beliefs. This is why change feels uncomfortable. The brain registers it as a threat to homeostasis. You change in microshifts, not breakthroughs. Lasting change is not the result of a single dramatic epiphany. It is the product of tiny, consistent daily actions, microshifts, that compound over time like a penny that doubles daily. We must focus on principle-driven actions, not passion-driven feelings. Your mind is anti-fragile. It gets stronger when exposed to volatility, stress, and challenge. If we shield ourselves from all adversity, the mind will create its own problems to solve. We must engage with real, meaningful challenges to stay mentally strong and creative. New change creates adjustment shock. Even positive life changes are stressful because they are unfamiliar. This can manifest as anxiety, hypervigilance, or a resurgence of limiting beliefs as we subconsciously resist leveling up. Psychic thinking isn't wisdom. This is the harmful habit of assuming we know what others are thinking, predicting worst-case scenarios, or believing our feelings are prophecies. It is fueled by cognitive biases like confirmation bias, extrapolation, assuming the present will last forever, and the spotlight effect, thinking everyone is focused on us. Logical lapses cause anxiety. Anxiety is often the result of underthinking, not overthinking. We experience a logical lapse when we jump to the worst-case scenario and never think through how we would survive and recover. Developing reasoning skills is key to calming anxiety. Faulty inferences hold you back. Highly intelligent people are especially prone to making incorrect assumptions based on valid evidence, e.g., hasty generalizations, false dichotomies. This can create a world filled with perceived threats. Worrying is the weakest defense system. Worry is a subconscious attempt to feel prepared and in control. However, it sensitizes us to negativity and creates suffering in the present over events that may never happen. True safety comes from building self-esteem and problem-solving skills, not from ruminating. The overarching message of this chapter is that we must use our conscious, logical mind to govern our lives, not our temporary and often irrational emotions. By understanding our psychological machinery, we can override its self-sabotaging defaults. Chapter 5. Releasing the Past. Wiest argues that we are designed to evolve, Yet much of our suffering comes from clinging to past identities, traumas, and unresolved emotions. This chapter provides a roadmap for letting go. A central insight is that you cannot force yourself to let go. Telling yourself to move on often strengthens the attachment. Instead, letting go is a passive process that occurs naturally when you actively build a new life. You begin to let go on the day you take one step forward, even if you cry for hours afterward. As the new life becomes more immersive and engaging, the past slowly loses its grip. A powerful psychological technique for healing past wounds is to re-enter painful memories and superimpose a new narrative. Imagine your current, wiser self sitting with your younger self during the traumatic event. Offer comfort, wisdom, and the assurance that everything will be okay. This helps release the old attachment and allows that fragmented part of you to integrate into the present. Healing also requires letting go of unrealistic expectations. The idea that we can only be happy once everything is perfect. True change begins when we show up exactly as we are, flaws and all, and learn to find peace in the imperfect present. Wiest offers a profound perspective on loss. What leaves the path is clearing the path. What is not right for you will never remain, no matter how hard you fight for it. The confusion and internal conflict we feel when trying to force a wrong situation are signs that it is not aligned with our true path. Clarity and ease are the markers of what is right. The chapter delves deeply into recovering from emotional trauma, defined as a sustained state of fight or flight following a frightening experience. Trauma is not all in your head. It is stored physically in the body, changing brain function, e.g., shrinking the hippocampus, increasing amygdala activity. Recovery is not just psychoanalysis. It is the literal physical reestablishment of safety. This means, if you are traumatized by relationships, you must build healthy relationships. If you are traumatized by money, you must become proficient with money. You must work to physically calm the body through breath, meditation, and self-soothing to exit survival mode. To release the emotional backlog stored in the body, Wiest recommends meditation to feel, not to be calm. Allow all suppressed emotions to arise and pass without reaction. Breath scans, to identify and release areas of physical tension. Sweat, move, cry. Physically express and release the embodied emotions. Finally, Wiest redefines healing not as a return to a naive pre-trauma self, but as a radical transformation. It is a disruptive, uncomfortable process of positive disintegration, where we gut our old self-concept and build a new, more resilient, empowered, and conscious self. Healing is the process of releasing the limiting beliefs and fears that prevent us from becoming who we were born to be. Chapter 6: Building a New Future. With the past released, the focus shifts to active creation. This chapter provides tools for designing a life of purpose and power. A key exercise is to connect with your highest potential future self. Through guided meditation, you visualize sitting down with this most evolved version of yourself, noticing their demeanor, style, and energy, and asking for guidance. The goal is to merge with this aspect of yourself, making your future self the CEO of your current life. Consistently ask, what would my most powerful self do in this situation? To become that powerful self, you must be aware of your weaknesses. Powerful people are not delusional. They know their limits and outsource or work on them. Be willing to be disliked. Universal approval is impossible. Act according to your purpose, not for others' validation. Act on purpose. Shift from a live for the moment to a live for the legacy mindset. Do your inner work. Constantly process triggers and challenges as opportunities for growth. A fundamental skill for this new life is learning to validate your feelings. Validation is not agreement. It is the simple act of acknowledging that a feeling is human and understandable. When we validate our own feelings or others, we disarm the need for dramatic outbursts or maladaptive coping mechanisms. It allows emotions to flow through and out of us, rather than becoming stuck. Wiest makes a critical distinction between inspiration and principles. Inspiration, dreams, vision boards, is fleeting and ineffective without a foundation of principles. Principles are fundamental, objective truths that govern cause and effect, e.g., live beneath your means, invest consistently, prioritize honest communication. A life built on principles is stable and resilient, regardless of external circumstances. To develop your principles, identify what you truly value and build non-negotiable rules of conduct around those values. Finally, finding your true purpose is demystified. Your purpose is not a single job or role. It is the intersection of your skills, interests, and what the world needs. More fundamentally, your purpose is to become the best, most conscious version of yourself. To clarify this, ask yourself, what and who is worth suffering for? What does the best version of myself look like? What would I do if social media didn't exist? What comes most naturally to me? What do I want my legacy to be? Your purpose is often forged in adversity, and it is reflected in your daily actions and how you treat others. Chapter 7. From Self-Sabotage to Self-Mastery. The final chapter synthesizes the journey, framing self-mastery as the natural outcome of taking radical responsibility for your inner world. The pinnacle of this mastery is controlling your emotions without suppressing them. Drawing from Buddhist philosophy, Wiest explains that true emotional control is a form of surrender. It is the practice of observing thoughts and feelings as they arise without attaching to them or being compelled to act on them. This is the difference between allowing yourself to feel anger, control, and either exploding with it or pushing it down, suppression. Self-mastery is the state where you are no longer a victim of your subconscious patterns. You understand the why behind your behaviors, you have the tools to process your emotions, and you are guided by a clear vision and unwavering principles. The mountain, the once daunting obstacle, is now behind you, and who you became in the process of climbing it is the greatest reward of all. Conclusion. The Mountain is You is a profound and systematic guide to existential growth. Brianna Wiest successfully reframes personal struggle from a curse to a curriculum. The book argues that our sabotaging behaviors are not flaws but signposts, pointing directly to the unresolved wounds and unmet needs that require our attention. The path to self-mastery is not about fighting ourselves, but about listening, understanding, and compassionately reparenting our inner world. It is a journey from being governed by unconscious fears to being led by a conscious, purposeful, and empowered self. The mountain was never the enemy, it was the training ground, and you are the alchemist, transforming your own base struggles into the gold of wisdom and freedom.